Well, this is a poem about an Old Testament story. Sennacherib was the king of the Assyrians. He had a powerful army and he was going to invade Israel and conquer the Hebrews. Of course, in the Bible, the Hebrews or the Jews are God's chosen people and God protects them. And this is what happens in this story of Sennacherib and the Assyrians. The Assyrians are poised to attack. The Hebrews can see them at sunset, all ready to swoop down upon them at dawn. There's nothing they can do. They're badly outnumbered. They have hardly any weapons. They're going to be slaughtered. But during the night, God sends the angel of death upon the Assyrians. They all die within a few heartbeats. This poem references that Old Testament story. It used to be regularly anthologized in grade school and middle school English books because it's such a good example of rhyme and stanza, metrics, metaphor, imagery, etc. But honestly, since Ogden Nash wrote his poem very like a whale, it's hard for people to read the destruction of Sennacherib with a straight face. And that's too bad because it is a very good poem. I think maybe I'll just read it and make a few comments as we go along. The Assyrian came down like the wolf on the fold, and his cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold. And the sheen of their spears was like stars on the sea when the blue wave rolls nightly on deep Galilee. Well, let's note that the poem begins with a simile. The Assyrian army came down like a wolf on the fold. Now, a fold refers to a group of sheep. Of course, a sheep is helpless when a wolf comes after it. The wolf is faster, stronger, and more vicious. In Ogden Nash's Very Like Whale, Ogden Nash makes fun of the poet using the singular Assyrian when it's an entire army. But that is common in English speech. We refer to the French, the English. We might also note that this image fits the context. Byron wrote this in 1815, I think. Most of England was rural. People knew about wolves attacking their animals. So it was an image that had a lot of personal force for the original readers of the poem. Cohort means a large group. I think it was originally a Roman military term, but in English it means a band of people and usually carries a connotation of villainy or meanness. And notice that in the third line we have another simile. The sheen of their spears. Sheen, of course, means a shine or shimmer. So the spears of these Assyrians were shimmering like stars reflecting on the sea. Galilee refers to the Sea of Galilee. Actually, it's a big lake, like 20 miles or so across, but it's in Israel, and it's referred to all the time in the Bible. So, the first stanza tells us that the Assyrians are about to descend upon the Hebrews and slaughter them. Like the leaves of the forest when summer is green, that host with their banners at sunset were seen. Like the leaves of the forest when autumn hath blown, that host on the morrow lay withered and strown. So the first two lines tell us, with another simile, what the army looked like at sunset. They were more numerous than the leaves in the forest in summertime. The last two lines provide a contrasting simile to tell us what the army looked like at dawn. They were gone, like the forest in autumn when all the leaves have dropped from the trees. Now the third stanza tells us what happened. For the angel of death spread his wings on the blast, and breathed in the face of the foe as he passed. Now that phrase, on the blast, is a little confusing. I've encountered that phrase in English novels. It usually refers to a group of hunters blowing a horn to commence a fox hunt or something. I assume here it refers to a kind of heavenly blast that was accompanied by the angel of death breathing upon this sleeping army. And the eyes of the sleepers waxed deadly and chill, and their hearts but once heaved, and forever grew still. The verb waxed means grew. If we were to read this story of Sennacharib and the Assyrians in the Bible, we would find that it is like a lot of Old Testament stories. So many Old Testament stories are written as if from 10,000 feet, with no personal detail. This happened, this person said this, that person did that, boom, we're done. In Old Testament stories, we don't see much detail, but in this poem, we do. I like this image of the soldier heaving, gasping once, and then dying. I can visualize that. It's powerful. And we get more specific images in the next stanza. And there lay the steed. A steed is a horse, with his nostril all wide. But through it there rolled not the breath of his pride. And the foam of his gasping lay white on the turf, and cold as the spray of the rock-beating surf. So the horse was foaming at the mouth as he died. Note the simile in the last line there, using as. Again, I can imagine that horse lying dead on the ground, nostrils wide as if it died trying to get air, the foam at its mouth being as cold as the spray on the surf. The images make the scene come alive, but we aren't done. And there lay the rider distorted and pale, with the dew on his brow and the rust on his mail. Mail here is his armor. And the tents were all silent, the banners alone, the lances up unlifted, the trumpet unblown. Now, in the last stanza, we have a passage of time. The news of the destruction of the Assyrian army has reached back home, and the wives and the families of the soldiers have received the bad news. And the widows of Asher are loud in their wail. Asher is an ancient city of Assyria. And the idols are broke in the temple of Baal. Baal is a false heathen god, and the Old Testament books speak very badly about it. And the might of the Gentile is the Assyrian. Any non-Hebrew was a Gentile. Unsmote by the sword, hath melted like snow in the glance of the Lord. And note we end with yet another simile. So the thing I want you to understand from this poem is that it's not incompetent, as the speaker of Very Like a Whale would have us believe. Very Like a Whale is a lot of fun, but there is a place for metaphor and simile in creative expression. Because of its imaginative expression, this little poem brings to life a pretty flat, pedestrian Old Testament tale.